Welcome back to the shop, everyone. This week's video is a 2-in-1. We've got 2023 week 38 and 39. That's going to be September 18th to September 24th, and then September 25th to October 1st. And since we are going until October 1st, week 39, and we're currently in week 40, that means we are up to current. So let's just get into this. What I'm doing right now is I am doing a doing a thing to measure the belt length that I'm going to need. So I'm taking a piece of string, I'm wrapping it around all the pulleys, and I'm going to measure that to figure out how long of a belt I need to order for this thing. So now that I've got the string there, I am going to attach it to a tape measure, and I'm going to get a measurement, and we're going to figure out how long of a belt I need. And I think the measurement I get is 61.5 inches. And while that looks good on paper, you'll see later in the video that did not work. So if you're watching this and you're like, oh, I need a 61.5 inch belt for this setup, no, you don't. I'm even going to write it down for you, 61.5, but that is wrong. Do not do that. All right, well, now that I have the belt measured, I'm going to start working on some dash stuff. So I'm going to undo the ignition switch, I'm going to drop the steering column, and I'm going to pull the dash out of the car. Just a very quick ADD break here while I see my throttle cable hanging there, and I'm just like, oh, let's try and figure this out. What do I need to do? And then I realized I'm not going to work on this right now, so let's not even bother. So continue pulling the dash. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build some boxes that the heater vents will sit in, and then those boxes will get welded to the dash. So when I had the dash cut out, I also had the company cut out a bunch of pieces so I could build boxes for the vents. I measured them and everything else. So I'm just going through and I'm just trying to make sure that everything is going to work how I expect it and how I want to weld these pieces up, because there's a couple of different ways you could do it. So I'm just making sure I do it the right way. Alright, so now that I know how I want these welded, I'm going to get them prepped. So I'm going to throw a little bit of tape on them so I can sand them where I'm going to weld, and that way the sanding marks don't go all over the piece. In hindsight, this part was kind of pointless, but whatever, I did it anyways. So since I've welded so much stuff before, I'm really not going to talk too much while I prep and weld all these parts. Enjoy. Since I haven't welded any aluminum in quite some time, before I start welding the actual vent pieces, I'm going to just do a very quick test with some test coupons, just to, you know, get back into the swing of things, make sure I got my settings dialed, make sure I'm using the right filler, stuff like that. So I also figured, what the hell, it's only a test piece, so let's cut it in half. Let's see what the weld looks like, see if the metal is actually welded together, and then I'm going to beat the shit out of it and make sure that it doesn't break apart, or, you know, that it's really solid. So the weld looks really good to me. I think I got good penetration. I think it's all one piece, and yeah, so I just beat the ever-living hell out of this. The weld never cracked, it never broke, the piece just bent. I'm quite happy with how my weld is. Whether or not, you know, it's like good enough for, you know, like aerospace, probably not, but whatever, for dash vents it's more than good enough. right, now that we got those welded, start test fitting the boxes and the dash vents that I 3D printed. Fits just fine. Go and try and put the vent itself in, and it is not just fine. So I built it with pretty tight tolerances, but I never took into account the weld in the corners. So what happened is the welds that I put in, the vent is actually hitting. So that's not good. It means that everything that I just did is wrong, and I'm gonna need to fix this somehow. So what I'm gonna do just for now, just as a test, is I am going to just knock out some of the weld. I'm just going to take a carbide burr and I'm just going to remove it. There's a fair amount of weld on the back side of that piece, so I'm not too worried about it. But this is going to take a bit of time, and we'll see if it works. Throughout this process, because that's a steel carbide burr and I'm going to aluminum, and aluminum is a much softer metal, I'm just using a scrap piece of steel to try and clear out the burr, because there's a bunch of aluminum that got melted and stuck into it. And what I also found is that the holes for the vent, the top hole is a little bit smaller than the bottom hole, so I just needed to open it up a tiny little bit just to make it fit. So starting on the second one, we're getting a good chunk of the aluminum out. Everything's going happy, and then I realized I fucked up. When I welded this box together, I welded one of the holes backwards. So one of those pieces is flipped. So I've got a hole at the top of the box and a hole at the bottom of the box. So the vent's not going to line up. And I'm just like, God, I was so conscientious on the first one. How did I fuck this up on the second one? It's like, God, I'm just messing everything up on these things, but it's okay. We can fix this later. I just want to get this kind of done and in the car. I can drill another hole. Not the end of the world. As I said, I can drill another hole. So now that I've got the welds cleaned up enough, I'm just going to take some measurements and figure out where I want the hole, and then I'll just drill it out. I know this isn't a great angle for you guys, but yeah, all in all, it's working kind of as expected. I'm pretty happy with it. All right, so here we are. We're getting into a bit of the work from earlier. I measured for a belt, and now I've got the belt. So what we're going to do is we are going to pull the ProCharger tensioner off. We're going to pull the ProCharger belt off, and we are going to check this new belt out. So what I noticed is I don't actually need the ProCharger tensioner off, but I noticed that one of the back bolts is actually like touching the air conditioning compressor bracket. So I'm pulling the tensioner off. I'm marking on that bracket. I'm gonna modify it. I'm gonna knock a big hole in it so that bolt clears properly. Kind of surprised that's happening, but hey, it is what it is. We'll modify and we'll make it work and we'll make it better. Alright, so now that that's off, I have this new tensioner rod. So the old one was too short. It wouldn't extend enough to clear everything like I wanted it to. So I grabbed a longer one. But this is just a cheapy piece off Amazon. So what I found is that the threads in the end of it are junk. When I looked down inside the threads on the one end, like the rod end wouldn't thread in all the way. Luckily it's on the right-handed thread side. But what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to take a tap and I'm just going to run it down and, you know, clean up the threads and make it so that that rod end threads all the way down. So to be fair, this is just like a $20 Canadian Amazon scrap piece of Chinese junk special. So I don't really expect anything great for that price point. I will likely end up swapping this out for a better quality piece. But while I'm trying to figure things out and I don't know exactly which one I'm going to need, buying a cheap piece is okay, and having it on here while I'm just testing, I'm not worried about it. But because it is just, you know, cheap Chinesium, I'm not expecting it to do great things in the long term, so I will end up swapping it out. All right, let's see how well I did measuring. Yeah, I sucked. That belt is way too short. It's like 2 inches too short. I think even without the tensioning rod on there, the belt's just way too short. So not a whole lot I can do other than I'm gonna have to order a new longer belt. Yeah, it is what it is. Yep, let's just do a little bit of cleanup. With some space made on the bench, I can start working on mating these 3D printed vents to the defrost duct from the car. I designed and 3D printed that. It works pretty well. There are a couple of small issues I'm going to have to fix. But aside from that, what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to mark some places on the 3D printed part. I'm going to drill some holes, and then I'm going to drill holes through the 3D printed part, through the defrost duct, and bolt it all together. Can't really complain with how that went together. It's pretty nice, and I think it's gonna work exactly how I need. But now I need to figure out how it's gonna actually attach to the dash, so I'm just kind of lightly putting it in place, and I realize that there is a piece of plastic that it mounts to, and unfortunately it's broken on one side. So you can see the side closest to me, there's, well, maybe you can't really tell, but there's a good chunk of plastic missing that would connect from this side all the way up and over into the middle. So that piece is still there on the passenger side, but it's not there on the driver's side. So I can only attach one screw in there for now, but it's sufficient to test how I need. And I'm just going to take a quick look at the dash pad, make sure that kind of is going to sit where I want. At least that was my intention, and then I got distracted. I figured it's probably just going to work, so I put stuff down. And now I am just checking out how the vents are going to go on the car. And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, well, the vents are going to kind of work. Defrost is going to kind of work. I don't need any of this dash piece here. Like, I don't need any of these modules. One of those is the fuel level low alarm sender. One of those is probably hazard flasher, maybe turn signal flasher. And I'm not sure what that white module is, but I don't need any of this. I don't need the metal on the dash, so I'm just gonna pull it out. So what I'm doing now is I am attaching the vent and heater controls into the classic auto air brain box there, and I'm going to test and make sure everything works like it's supposed to. If I recall correctly, I did some rewiring on it, and I just haven't had it connected yet. So the first thing I need to do is I need to get the battery charger on the car, because this has been sitting and the battery's dead. Alright, so with that connected, we can connect the ignition switch, turn the power to the car on, and now we can test and make sure the fan's working. That's the first thing I did, is I turned the fan on, and yeah, the fan works. It spins, it goes low, medium, high. It's perfect. Loving it. So then I'm just checking out like the different vent settings, so going from defrost to floor, etc. Now what's on my heater control might not necessarily match what the car does, but that's okay. It's working. The motor's moving. It's doing everything it needs to do. That's perfect. So there is a classic auto air app, and it'll give you some diagnostic info, tell you where things are. So I download it and I try and connect, but it's asking for a Bluetooth password. So I'm not sure what the Bluetooth password is. I went offline, I did some digging, I couldn't find it. So I figured, screw it, I've got all the paperwork from when I bought the unit, so I'm looking through the paperwork to see if the Bluetooth password is included anywhere. It's not. So I'm gonna have to call the vendor. I still haven't called them as of recording. I did send them an email, but I never heard anything back, so I will have to end up calling them. But I did find the calibration mode of this, so I'm just quickly running through the calibration, and after the calibration, everything works even better. So I am so happy with this. I'm so happy with my custom 3D printed parts to mount the controls, and yeah, everything is just working perfectly with this so far. And I also figured, what the hell, maybe the Bluetooth password is on the back of the module. So I'm just going to quickly remove it from this panel and check, and lo and behold, it's not there either. So yeah, still gonna have to call them. Alright, with the disappointment of not being able to connect the Bluetooth app to the unit, I have a new belt. I believe I got a belt that was just 2 inches longer, so 63.5 inches. And we are just going to very quickly check and see if that is going to work for us. And yes, it will. Look at that. That's awesome. That's going to work. That's perfect. The problem is the rod that I have is too long. So neither the original rod that came with the alternator kit nor the new rod that I just bought is going to work. So I'll have to buy yet another one. But that's okay, because there are tons of projects on this car that we can get back to. So I am going to get back onto doing some of the dash stuff. In order for me to weld those dash vent pods that I just welded up to the dash, I need to remove all the gauges, because I am not confident in my own welding abilities that I wouldn't melt them. So I'm just going to pull them all out. And what I'm doing right here is I'm just doing some checking to make sure that, you know, the vent pieces that I just built with the actual 3D printed pieces are going to do what I want it to do, and it's not. Like, this dash would stick like 3 inches off of the or the cluster would stick like 3 inches off the face of the dash, which isn't what I want. So I need to figure something out. I'm like, do I modify the dash? Do I just cut the dash? What do I do? The answer is, I don't know what I'm going to do, but that's tomorrow Ben's problem. I'm going to pull the gauges out, because I know this is something that I need to do anyways. Well, apparently it's tomorrow, because tomorrow Ben is looking at this problem again and what I'm gonna do. So put the cluster face down, and it needs to sit real down, and then I realized that the original Ford vents just plugged right onto the back of the dash, and then there was like a receiver piece that kind of sat inside the middle. So what I need to do is adapt some vents here on the back, and then I can cut those boxes down to make it so it fits right nice and tight, and then I can just do a little bit of like felt filler to make it fit all nice. So I'm just doing up some quick measurements. And with those measurements taken, that is all the time we have for this week's video. So as always, if you've stuck around this long, I'd like to thank you for viewing, and we'll see you in the next one.